What's up everyone? Sarah Beth's nominations have been made and the high roller room has opened up for the second week, derailing Sarah Beth's nominations. We've got so much to talk about, guys, so welcome to your live feed update. Alright folks, let's talk about nominations straight away and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of it. So Sarah Beth has decided to nominate Big D and Claire for eviction. I wonder where we've heard that one before. Oh yes, it was Carlin's HOH exactly last week, making this basically a replica week, but with the high roller room in place, obviously it's not exactly going to be smooth sailing, what we're going to get into shortly. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was thinking Carlin's basically gotten ahead and she's done exactly what Carlin wanted her to, or Carlin, not necessarily what Carlin wanted her to, because Carlin did even pitch putting himself up against Claire, but the fact that Carlin had the same nominations last week, I mean, this is basically Carlin's third head of household in my opinion. That's kind of what it feels like anyway. But you know what, if Sarah Beth feels it's best for her game, then go for it. But I think as viewers, it's easy for us to say it's not, because she is going to be picked off by the cookout, and she's just making that job easier for them. And I've got to say, credit due where credit's due. The cookout are going unnoticed totally, although we said, you know, Derek X and Claire were nearly onto them at one point, and they still are kind of. Nobody's, you know, yet to say to Sarah Beth, you need to do this because this has happened. Nobody's taken any action, and I've got to give credit to the cookout at that point, because they're doing a marvellous job of keeping things on the DL and people not finding out about anything, so that's props to the cookout for that. So while Claire and Derek F are on the block, it's not necessarily going to be one of them as Sarah Beth's initial targets, or so we thought at the time. Derek X seems to be the backdoor plan for this week, but panic not, Derek X fans, because obviously we're going to get onto the high roller room very shortly. So Derek X had been saying to Claire that if he wins the veto, he's going to take her off, all that sort of stuff, and smooth sailing, because they're the two that realise there could be the cookout, and if there's going to be any chance of them counteracting that big alliance, then I think Derek X and Claire realise that they need each other to do so. So yeah, Derek X is the plan for the backdoor this week. Sarah Beth is kind of getting rid of someone who is going to be on her side if they realise the cookout is a thing. But as I say, I keep giving credit to the cookout because Sarah Beth is doing the work for them without even realising it, so props due to the cookout there. But anyway, Big D is essentially became the new porn star of the season. Since Brittany is gone now, somebody always assumes that position. Somebody always assumes that position in the house, whether or not you've been one for the first 5, 6, 7 weeks like Brittany has. As soon as she goes, somebody will take that place as that person, and Big D is the new porn star of the season, as weird as that sounds. So he's probably going to find himself on the block frequent amount of times until he does head out of the house, unless somebody decides taking Big D to the final 2 is a good idea, because it will likely be a clean sweep should he get there, and the person sat next to him is likely going to get all the votes to win the game. Now, of course, with the high roller room this week, the roulette wheel would be in play because BB Bucks will come into play. So, before we get onto the roulette wheel, we should actually talk about who won the BB Bucks. So here we go, guys. Obviously, it's hard to confirm like it was last week because we can only go off word of mouth, and a lot of people lie about their currency and how much they've got. So this is kind of what we're looking at likely as the people who earn the 175 and 50 BB Bucks this week. Okay folks, so with 100 Big Brother bucks this week, we have Derek X once again, Big D once again coming through the 100 bucks, and moving up to the 100 bucks section is Claire, so huge congratulations to those three. With 75 we have Alyssa, Xavier and Hannah, and with 50 are the rest of the other 4 house guests who did only receive 50 like we say, guys. But of course with those BB bucks comes the games in the high roller room, so let's talk about who actually played for the roulette wheel. Okay folks, so whilst Derek X realises that this is a crucial week, he decided not to play in the roulette wheel, and he wants to save his BB bucks for the coin flip of destiny next week. Of course, that is essentially a coup d'etat for those of you who watch Big Brother way back when. You know, I've seen the old seasons of the coup d'etat, so you will basically choose the nominations yourself. It's essentially an overthrow of the head of household. But anyway, he's kind of hoping to be there for that. We'll see if he actually makes it through this week first, so he can do the coin flip of destiny, or otherwise all of his BB bucks will go to waste, unfortunately. But, ladies and gentlemen, the roulette winner this week was Alyssa, so a huge congratulations to Alyssa. She decided to remove Big D off the block, so Big D is not going anywhere this week. He is safe from nomination. And then the roulette wheel was spun, and it landed on Xavier. So our nominees now, guys, are Claire next to Xavier. So now what looked like a week where there could be an actual crack in the cookout, it seems that is very unlikely. It is almost certain Claire or Derek X will be leaving the house this week. Of course, Sarah Beth she didn't seem to realise what's going on. She has no clue that the cookout's there because she seemed convinced that if the nominees stay the same, that Xavier will 100% leave over Claire, which is not the case. The cookout have the numbers, and Claire will be leaving the Big Brother house this week if the nominees stay the same. Now, of course, if Derek X goes on the block, he will likely leave the house. Hannah obviously will have the most sway going on there. I would imagine Tiffany's going to probably try and keep Claire around, and Hannah will be campaigning for Derek X to stay around. Again, making tensions in the cookout get more and more high. But of course, nothing that's going to break them because Tiffany, I would say, will have the upper hand. She is shown to be more persuasive than anybody in that house, and she will be able to manipulate the house guest into probably sending Derek X out the door rather than Claire. And to be honest, it's a bigger move. It sucks so much. Claire and Derek X are both amazing, fantastic house guests, but listen, the logical move is to take Derek X out. He's more of a threat than Claire. He can do more damage than Claire, as proven before. Now, as a viewer, if you are a fan of seeing people, you know, the two sides of the house go against each other, this time the cookout and the people on the bottom, an example would be Big Brother 6 with the Friendship Alliance and the Sovereign 6. That would, you know, it was just like a battle every single week of power transferring backwards and forwards. Of course, if you want hope of seeing that this season, Derek X will probably need to stick around because he is more likely to win a comp than Claire, I would say. But anyway, I mean, you never know what could happen. If Claire wins the veto and then, you know, she pulls herself off the block, Derek X will likely go up. Definitely sending Derek X out the door. No battle between Claire and Derek X there will send him out. And now Derek X is in the position now where he said, if I win the veto, I'm not even going to use it. I don't think he wants to ruffle feathers, although he wouldn't go on the block, but I feel like he just doesn't want to be ruffling feathers. I think it sort of seems like so. It's almost certain, ladies and gentlemen, like we said at the beginning of this clip, that this week, it's very, very almost certain that Claire or Derek X will become the second member of the jury. Now, Alyssa did start the work to ensure that Claire would be going home over Derek X should both of them end up on the block by the end of the week. Like we just said there, she'll probably be campaigning to send Claire home. Tiffany will probably be sending to send Derek X home. She was even talking about, you know, last week before, when it was still Carlin's head of household, she was saying all of the scenarios that were thrown around in our head, most of them will end up in the fact Derek X needs to go home. So if she can get that done this week, then that'll probably create a little tension between her and Hannah, and they seem to be a final two. That's very, very likely this season, so I wouldn't imagine it's anything where the damage can't be reversed, but I would imagine it can be a little tension. So it's crazy to think what could actually happen with this, because even though the cookout aren't in jeopardy at all this week, or very likely in jeopardy, it's still interesting to see tensions always rise, because when you've got 6 people in the group, whether it's the cookout or whether it's Grateful or whether it's the committee or any big group that's been in the history of Big Brother, there's always tension no matter what. And that's how, you know, there has to be tension, because there needs to be a core. People within that group are always trying to better themselves to make sure that when it does get down to the last 6 of them, or the last 7 or 8 of them, however many's in the alliance, 8 for goodness sake, that's crazy, but the people who are really playing realise that they need to get to the final 4, the final 5, then the 4, then the 3, then the 2, and then obviously win the game. So there's obviously always going to be tension. But it's going to be a really interesting week to see where things go. Even though we kind of know it's going to be Claire or Derek X that's gone, it will be a reveal on who is probably the most powerful in the cookout to get their own way and send Derek X or Claire out the door. That is all of your live feed updates for today, folks. I thoroughly hope you all enjoyed watching. Please let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below, folks. It's like we say, it's a kind of a replica of Carlin's head of household that got derailed, so it couldn't be a replica. But I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. Do you think Sarah Beth has been a good head of household? Are you happy with the nominees being Claire and Xavier at this point? Who would you like to see go home, Claire or Derek X? I would even ask Xavier, but it's unlikely he's gone due to the cookout completely having his back, and he has a very sound social game as well, so I'll give that to him as well. But folks, I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll say as I always do, make sure you're all staying safe, staying positive, and staying healthy out there, and be kind to one another. But in the meantime, please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. But until your next live feed update, I've been your host Tom Vasey. Good night.